Hello, everyone. My name is David Leclerc. I am the host of the ChUG podcast, and here with me is the host of the
Flow Star.
Flowstar podcast. 5 seconds in, managed to stumble.
That's
Beautiful
brilliant.
tool.
So both Flow Stars and the microscopies, two different
Yeah.
podcasts.
Thanks for joining us.
No, pleasure. Good to be on the other end of a podcast instead.
I
So
know.
nice, refreshing.
Yeah. Um, for the purpose of this conversation, I feel like it's important. Like people will know you much better than they know me. But I thought it would be interesting for people to understand just how busy you are in the field of microscopy and flow cytometry. And I wanted to introduce you, and I looked at your profile, and it's not that I'm concerned about giving the wrong title. It's just that there's so many of them that I'm just not concerned about, like providing one that you might not feel is the most important. So why don't you go ahead and present
Yeah, so,
yourself in a way
yeah,
that
it's on Pete. That's the easiest way to call it. No, just Pete. No, so I guess if you go in time, so when I moved to York, I became head of the imaging and cytometry lab, which was a combined microscopy and flow cytometry facility, and
Mhm.
had expertise in both and developed those part of that role anyway, helped develop them further. Then I became director of the core technology facilities, so the technology facility here at York, which encompasses genomics, protein production, molecular interactions, metabolomics, proteomics, and mass specs, molecular interactions, data science, and my own lab. But I didn't give up my day job.
Right.
So it kind of split between the two roles. I've got a great team, so they're really good at helping manage it. The other lab heads are all pretty competent. So that's the second role. And then, of course, you were alluding to with the Royal Microscopical Society. Last year, I became president of that as well. But again, the RMS, the Royal Microscopical Society, the RMS, has a really good background team.
Mhm.
So again, it makes my life very easy.
Right. I was about to ask, like, where do you get to do your actual job with all these trainings, workshops, podcasting?
Yeah, I would say they're all parts of the job in a
Yeah.
way. They all benefit the job.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a key thing. I don't do anything that doesn't benefit the day job, if that makes sense. If you think about the podcast, it's highlighting what York's doing. I'm getting time with people and hearing what they're doing at the moment. That's some of the latest tech. So quite often after the podcast, they'll tell you what they're doing.
Right.
So you're sort of getting ahead of the field and you're getting to hear that. Uh, you're raising the brand of the facility and your own work. So that's also good. And with the president of the RMS, it gives you influence on the field itself to make sure the field is moving in the direction that you feel it should be moving in, which of course helps the day job as well. So there's lots and lots of soft benefits.
Yeah. So how important do you feel the podcasting is in your, so it raised the brand, but like how do you to me it's one of these things where if I get an idea, I'll record a podcast, and then that's about it. And every podcast could very well be the very last one I've ever made. To you, is that something that you feel you'll keep going at it for a while, or?
Yeah, I'd like to go a bit longer. I
Mhm.
think my podcast is a little different to your own because
Right.
you're in subject orientated and topic orientated. Most of the podcasts I do for Flow Stars and the microscopists are about the people I'm interviewing
Mhm.
and meeting with. It's not really interviewing; it is like this, very much an informal chat. Uh, and it's a different motivation. Although it's got the soft benefits, the motivation wasn't for the soft benefits. The motivation was because I think it's really important to hear some of the big stars of flow cytometry or microscopy. Actually, their careers are not as linear as you
Mhm.
might think. And I think if you're a young PhD postdoc or someone working at core, to know that there's different ways forward, and you should just most of the people you follow what you're good at. So I don't think I set off doing an undergraduate PhD wanting to become a flow cytometrist.
Right.
I don't think many of us did,
No, I
and not
stumbled
many of
into
us
it.
would do. But yeah, you fall into it because you find where your passion is, where your interests are, and you follow that. And I wanted to really show that even your Nobel laureates in the world of microscopy, so your Eric Betzig, your Stefan Hells, your Chalfies, your Murners, they're all actually, even Paul Nurse. Paul Nurse started as a technician and then went through finding what he's good at and his passions. And I think it's fascinating to hear that it's not like, I've got this idea and I'm going to become a Nobel laureate doing it. It's a case of, well, actually, I'm just quite good at this and enjoy it. I'm going to do that. And it's like a branch, isn't it? You just keep following your strengths, and some get lucky with their inspirational Nobel laureates. Others of us have inspirational ideas, but don't get them quite so far.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me because I was thinking of you over the weekend because J. Paul Robinson informed the Purdue list regarding the passing of Alan Wagner, and made a point of reminding the newcomers in the field that we don't know our history, we don't know the people who came before, and I don't consider myself a newcomer anymore, but I'm guilty as charged. I don't really know Alan Wagner all that well, and so I was thinking, where exactly would I know to look for to get to meet these people, and yours is probably one of the only venues where this is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that was so. Yeah, there was one of sort of sharing career paths, sort of inspiring youngsters, reassuring people in their current roles that what they're doing is normal and it's not wrong. But the other one was putting it into the vault.
Right.
You're capturing people for the future, so you can look. I'd love to know what if you go back and look at some of the really microscopy in the 1800s. What were they actually like? How motivated were they? What were they like outside of work?
Right.
And capturing what they're like outside of work as well. And yeah, I obviously never got to Alan, but I knew from his first publication because I was in the UK. One of the first Sci3 and Sci5 had just come out, or Sci3 first, I think it was, just come out, and it was just available. We actually emailed to get samples of it, and then it was commercialized. So obviously I was following his research way back in my early PhD days. And it's a shame that I didn't get to Alan. I didn't get to Howard Shapiro.
Right.
There's misses
Yeah.
that I regret actually not having got, but you can't do everyone at one time. So my original hit list still has people on it, but I try and mix it up with rising stars as well, not just the big established names, but some of those rising through the ranks and coming through it. Because I think it's quite good to capture them at an earlier stage as well.
Right.
So what motivates you to do the podcast?
Oh, mine was totally a 2020 COVID artifact. We the ChUG group has existed for quite a while as something that comes in and goes as people come and go in Chicago, and in around 2016-17 we decided to reorganize ChUG and organize these in-person meeting, invite industry to talk about the new technologies. And so we did a couple about spectral flow cytometry and the single cell sequencing platforms and how it connects to flow sound in cell sorting. I just hate organized, like, booking room and getting people to like show up and count how many slices of pizza do we need per person. I don't like that. And so when COVID shut everything down, I was like, okay, let's do online stuff. And even that, we did 2 webinars, one with David Novo and one with I forget the name of the gentleman. I always do, and that's my MO, by the way. It's not personal. But even that, just getting everybody to show up at the same time was a drag to me. It was like you have to advertise, you have to. I don't like it. So podcasting was just a way to talk about exactly what I want, record it, send it out, and people, if they're interested, they'll watch it. If not, not my problem. And then we just move on to, and as we went along, it just became a way for me to learn about the stuff that I'm concerned about currently in my day-to-day job. If you were in my lab, you could probably predict which are the next 4 or 5 podcasts coming out, because that's the stuff I talk about to my staff all the time.
So go on. What are the next 4?
One of them actually is the ABRF. It's another one of the series on service contracts. I hosted a session at the last ABRF meeting on service contracts and ways.
And what's your concern? Is that the cost of the service contracts, reliability of the service contracts? What are you worried about?
Everything. The cost of service contracts is basically, the cost to me is not related to the value of the things we're getting. Reliability very much depends on where you're located geographically. If you're on the coast, you're pretty good. If you're in Chicago, you're sharing your service engineers with everybody in the flyover country, and like there's no, like, Chicago is like the big hub, and everybody is really far apart. But the main concern, the one I'm really annoyed about, is that it seems that the course facility staff is just pushed away from servicing their own instruments. We don't have the instruments, we don't have the parts to do simple stuff, and we don't have the knowledge anymore to do it. Where previously, if you had I don't know, it feels to me like if you had a fax scan, a caliber, you could deal with it. The LSR2, you could get inside and play with it. And now the new machines are very black boxish, and
yeah, but come on, the LSR2 you could physically fit inside. There was so much air in it, which is why it was so easy to do. No, I don't disagree in many respects. Most of our systems are under service contract, but I vehemently disagree with the 10% rule. And so many new companies say, oh, it's 10% of the list or 10% of the purchase price. No ways. Yeah. It should really, I get some instruments are going to cost more because of the amount of innovation they put into them and the amount of R&D to get it there.
Yeah.
But then if you've only got so many lasers, so many detectors, so many moving parts, your service contract should be fixed to that, not the price of the instrument. If you come out with a whole new technology and you can sell it for twice the price compared to a competitor because it's so much better. But if it's got the same lasers and detectors, ultimately, it should be the same service price because there's no extra bits. It's just profiteering. In the UK, actually, we're fairly good. I've got to give credit to Coulter, BD, Zeiss, we all have contracts with, are not running that model and are much more reasonable. I'm saying that Coulter maybe, every now and then they put a price out there that's a bit outlandish, but generally we're well looked after. But it's that I refuse to buy instruments on their service contract price, and I've actually said, I can't do it because I can't. It's a waste of it's our money we're spending. Ultimately, it's taxpayers' money, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or people who've given it to charity, or they've paid their taxes. It's their money we're spending. And you think, great, and they say, oh, don't worry about it. We'll give you 3 years or 5 years, and then you can worry about it then. So, but in 3 or 5 years, that means I might have to just kill it or mothball it because I can't afford to maintain it, and that's not right.
Yeah.
They've got to make a profit, absolutely. And we've got great engineers that are supported, but they shouldn't be profiting on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I completely digressed, David.
Oh no, absolutely. That's all of my podcasts lately kind of take a tangent towards service contracts.
That was one, 2 other 3 concerns. I did ask what you're for. So what
the other one, I presumably accused Ree Gardner of murdering people who apply competition on top of their own mixing, and so he asked for Thunderdome, and so we'll need to have him on and debate the question with somebody.
Okay.
And so we'll see how it goes. Another one, I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm curious about QC beads. I think and this is the quality of a podcast. Like, it doesn't need to be the most awesome cutting edge topic. It can be like things that we take for granted. And is there interesting about anything to say about QC beads? And I'm pretty sure QC beads are incredible. We make a whole bunch of assumptions about what they are they made, like how they're made, how we can actually use them. And what we're asking of these beads is actually quite a lot. If you look at your QC report of like 5 laser instrument, that bead, that dye is supposed to be excited by every single wavelength and emit and separate all these fractions of beads really, really well throughout the visible spectrum. It's kind of amazing. And it actually, for some of these detectors, it actually doesn't work. And so what does it mean, for example, for these BUV 805 detectors? How does that tell, like, what's the loss of what does the loss of the quality of the QC report that we're getting tells us on the instrument?
Yeah, I can't see why they all have to be in one bead, but yes.
It's a ease of use, I guess. And again, it's like, it's all in this framework of making the instrument as easy as possible to run for anybody, but then very likely we're losing a whole lot of things with it. What are those things?
Yeah, and QC is one of the least sexy topics, but
absolutely,
but it's the one we all look at.
Yeah,
because it's essential to it.
Right.
And as a geek, if you like your stats, it's the best one to follow.
Right. We had a bit on the stats would be this is, and again, this is where the ChUG podcast is really much what I'm interested in. If I don't do a whole lot of analysis on my own, we're more make sure the machine works and data users take their data, move on. And so we're very rarely asked to run our own analysis. So yeah, I would need to like get somebody to co-host this one. But I had a discussion about cleaning products, which I think is also a place where a whole lot of people are confused. Why do we use bleach? What do you use? What is Elmenex? What is all these different companies have their own liquids that they want to clean with? Why this one over this one? Is there really a difference? And
why is Culture Cleanse blue and others are green?
right. Looks like mouthwash. Looks delicious.
Oh yeah, I've never tried it.
How happy are you with the results of the feedback you're getting from podcasting? You have 62 episodes of Microscopists, 24 of Flow Stars.
Yeah, the stats you probably won't. So I'm really pleased. I didn't know what would be successful and what wouldn't be successful. I had no idea what would constitute it being good,
right,
worthwhile, to what is that would be seen as a bit on the edge. But we're really close. Within the next month or two, we should have 250,000 views and listens across all episodes.
Oh wow, that's
so we got over 2,500 subscribers.
Right.
And yes, so it's gone better than I think any of us expected. And actually, it did start at the start of COVID, but we had the idea before COVID. And actually, the thing I didn't say is actually you didn't like arranging meetings. I don't like introducing people at conferences.
Oh, really?
And because it's always reading off their CV, isn't it? Oh, they studied here for their degree, then went here to do their PhD, then studied here and did this and published this. And I'll always get a fact wrong. You know, my recall of facts like that, which I'm not that worried about. You know, I'm interested in them and what they're going to be talking about, not their history necessarily. So actually, I got talking to a few people before a couple of conferences that I was having to introduce, and had those just sit down 5 minutes with a cup of coffee, and then just talking to them, you realize just they weren't these super nerdy scientists. They had normal lives as well. I thought, you know what, that's a much better way to introduce them, and introduce them by their hobbies and the things you cannot see on Wikipedia or what they're profiling. So that's kind of what put it out there. And I think because of that difference is why it was successful. especially during the COVID times. I think people like to know the people. As you say, it's like the vault. You'd like to know what Alan Wagner was like. If we'd have got the podcast, you could have gone back now and actually seen exactly what he was like as a person.
Right.
So, even the original ones, we like to Jennifer Lippincott-Schwartz, they're still growing. They're still getting, 50 to 100 views and listens, a month extra. So they're still accumulating and it's still pulling in new people. So it's good fun, but they take a little bit of time. But David, how much prep did you do for this?
Not much. Honestly.
No.
Yeah.
And so, because it's just nice to sit down and you talk. If you're at a conference and you bumped into, do you fancy a coffee? And it's just like sitting down having a coffee with them. And that informality of it is really nice.
Yeah. Yeah. ChUG is definitely the.
So yeah, it's been more successful than I envisaged it would be. Far more people listen to the audio than watch it. So if you take the viewing figures and times it by about 10 to 12, that gives you roughly how many there are. But there's some, Gary Nolan.
Yep. 12,000 views.
Yeah, so more people have watched him than listened. And that's very abnormal. Most listen rather than watch.
Right.
But some are 3 to 1, others are 30 to 1. It's
right. But Gary had the community on YouTube probably knows him through other interviews he's done about aliens and whatnot.
Yeah, and UAPs. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I found interesting. He's the one who got me to take this topic more seriously. Then again, if you were to meet an alien, what would you really want to know from them? Like, how much do you pay for your service contract on your flow starter? You would want to know, do you apply computation on top of your on mixing?
If you
maybe that led to world peace in their world and galactic travel. We don't know.
I think the reason that Gary got involved would be my first concern is what can I catch off you? What's this going to do to my immunology? What are the potential problems? I think there'd be a bit of fear factor.
Right.
Not that they could, but just for disease and interactions, which I think is how Gary got involved.
Right.
To start with was to study those interactions. I think it's a right concern if you were to ever encounter an alien, is what would happen at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great, super interesting, challenging topic. Actually, it's like, how do you tell from like people who want to be interesting from people who actually believe that they saw what they saw and kind of data that's. Yeah.
I think people think they've seen something. They've seen something.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it's an odd community. It's an odd thing, isn't it? And for Gary to be out there championing that, I think is a very strong point, because who knows, really? And as Gary says, there are other living species in this universe. Right. For me, that's a no-brainer. And how that shapes or forms, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't try and live within the constraints of how we think and how we see things. So it's, there's plausibility. Yeah. And it's very brave, I think, of in a world that scoffs at anything that is not the norm. I'd say Gary's not championing, believes in what he's talking about, that is outside what most people are comfortable with. Yeah. So there's a lot of champions around him. So I think it's positive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How do you I
also believe that if they were to, I'd make sure they took a card saying you got to go listen to Flowstar. So when they go back, we get a whole new
increase your
or ChUG Cytometry, whichever one.
How do you? So I get the feeling. I understand. I follow Flowstar a little bit better. How do you prepare these podcasts? It feels to me like you take a short amount of time, you meet, you interview these people, and then you release throughout the year. Is that more or less correct?
Yeah. So send a series of invites out, get dates set up, pre-record, and then we release them as every 2 weeks as a season,
Right.
as it were.
Right.
I BitesizeBio do all the professional bits
Right.
and wrap around. So it needs sponsorship to enable them to do that, because I'm not someone who's very good at or has the time or inclination to be editing the videos. I don't envy you. If you have to edit this, you've got to listen to yourself back, and there's nothing worse
Five
than listening
times.
to yourself. So BitesizeBio look after all that. And they're super cool. One of the reasons that I think it's successful is BitesizeBio have a different audience.
Mhm.
So, I can reach our cytometry audience, but they can put it out to a different email distribution list and different social media. So they help broaden the appeal and bring new audiences to it as well.
How does it work with BitesizeBio? What do they? It's basically a group that I've seen the different podcasts from other people. They're all related to different parts of science, biology, but like what? How?
So they're, oh gosh, oh no, Nick's gonna kill me because I can't remember the name of their own one. They do have a two-person one which is just themselves, and they work for BitesizeBio.
Right.
And they have their podcast. And that was probably one of how it started on the podcast side, was them talking about science and careers in science, tips and tricks as it goes along. But they put lots of training and teaching material onto the website, making it a useful resource for anyone wanting to do interesting in the science world. And I think when I did the microscopists, I was talking to Zeiss because I needed someone to put that wrap round, to film it, to edit it, to put the audio. And they said, well, we'll sponsor it and we'll pay BitesizeBio to do that side of it, put a professional company. And so that's how we found them. And then obviously with FlowStars, it seemed an obvious thing to be fair, microscopists are not just microscopists, there's other people in there too. It's because it's about the people, it's not about the technology.
Right.
But I think having FlowStars, people know they're looking at their community. So it's very easy, and it's all their community. So it's all relevant to them. The people are relevant. They'll meet the people at CYTO, for example, or whichever cytometry conference they go to. There's a good chance they're going to meet someone that they've seen on that. So I think that gives them that extra relevance. So they do that, do the recording, wrap round. They'll put the emails out, send me the links, put the intros and the outros to it, things like that. Right. And the artwork. The artwork is all theirs.
I've been trying to find some kind of music at the end, intro, outro. Like I just cannot get myself to decide on what I want. Everything is either copyrighted or not something I like.
That's a good question. I don't know. Has the microscopist or FlowStars got actual music at the start?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I don't watch or listen to them back.
Oh, you don't?
Oh God, no. God, I've been listening to myself. No ways. If I do, I fast forward it so I just hear what I wanted to. Because sometimes I forget something they've said, and it's like you now, you're thinking a question ahead.
Right.
So you're really half listening to me. Probably.
Right.
And so sometimes, so I'll go back and listen to that bit again because I wanted to get a bit more detail off it. But yeah, if I'm on it, I'll skip it and.
I think it got me better at podcasting to have to listen to myself over and over again. I get a rough idea of what I was thinking when I did this and that. And sometimes if you go back to the older episodes, sometimes I'm the one who's gonna make the conversation completely veer off because I wasn't not listening nearly enough for and I don't know. It's I do recommend people doing podcasting in general. It's good for you.
It's a different skill though.
Yeah.
It's not difficult. I think some of us don't find it difficult. Others would probably find it more challenging. I would say, having said I don't listen to myself back, I think my team and people who know me would be amazed at that. I'm sure most of them think I like the sound of my own voice when I'm talking, but there you are.
Yeah. The one success story I have is at some point there was a flood in my lab, and I was involved in discussions with the university as a third-party insurance group. and they were looking for the cheapest way to make us happy, right? And one of the instrument we just had purchased, and they wanted to just like repair it and move on with their life. And I think because I had a few podcasts in, I was able to actually stand my ground, start talking, and before I was kind of struggling, stringing words in a sentence. It's not everybody's forte. This one, like, either the guy I made such a strong point for myself, or the guy got so annoyed at me, it would just, okay, stop talking, I'm gonna replace the instrument, it's fine. But I don't know, it does build some kind of skills, a skill set of like bringing ideas on the spot, like following better, and being more in listening in the present.
I think it's probably the only thing it's probably helped with is if you go to a party
Yeah.
and you don't know many people,
Yeah.
you know, you've got topics you can just questions you can just reel off.
Right.
And every now and then it's quite entertaining. If people have seen the podcast and you're having dinner with people and you know they've seen one or two, it's just to start to go into that line of questioning without them realizing it. And then you go into the quick fire questions and then they realize they've been set up.
So you say you don't listen. So if I was to ask you if you have a favorite episode, would one come to mind, or it's kind of a
No, do you know
on the spot, making the episode was actually a lot of fun or something? I remember one of your Flowstar episode, you had to like leave and stop a crime in progress outside.
Oh gosh, Tim and Alfonso.
Yeah.
It turns out it was just the I don't know if I should say this out loud. No, I won't say it out loud. And actually, it wasn't a burglary. It was just maybe one of the neighbours flying out their driveway in a temper.
Oh.
Wheel spinning their car in reverse and then hot spinning it off. But the windows were open. It was a sunny day. So I thought, oh my God, their car's just been nicked because it's very abnormal behavior. And it's like, oh, I can't just be a bystander and stand there, do nothing. I've got to pause. So I asked two of them a question to tell each other while I went off to get my family and say, can you go next door and find out what's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where your editing skills would you could stop there and
yeah. So it wasn't even cut.
Well, right, no, yeah, it was it was right there.
So yeah, very few get edited.
Yeah,
but they're just nice to do. They're just enjoyable.
Yeah,
for it, and it's part of. I'll give you a nice segue. It is part, I think, of training and coaching. It's for everyone at all career levels. It gives outreach because you get the lay scientists that will also listen to them as well. So it's not just flow cytometrists or microscopists. There's a general audience as well. So some of the general audience, popular science magazines picked it up in the early days as well, publicized it. But I think for your PhDs, postdocs, I've actually had new PhDs starting at York, and then they've heard the voice through the door, and they've gone, oh, that's, and they're not knowing I even worked here.
Right.
It's like, well, I don't promote work very well, do I?
Yeah. So, all right, I'll take that segue for training and workshops. And as we said before, you're involved in a whole bag of them. There's a lot of goings in. This is all through the RMS, or you have your own from York University as well?
No, so the first courses we ran were my own courses.
Mm-hmm.
So these are 4-day hands-on courses. The first one was for confocal microscopy, and then within a year we were doing it for flow cytometry. Almost the same recipe, if that makes sense. Just replacing flow cytometry and their applications with the microscopy and their applications. With each application, even if you never do that study, you're going to learn something about the operation of the instruments and how the instrument works inside mechanically as well, without knowing it. So it's sort of taught on multiple levels. So we started those in 2003, I think. God, I was just a whippersnapper, but full of confidence. And I'd been on a course myself at EMBL, so the European Molecular Biology Labs, which was an EMBO-sponsored course, so it was very, very cheap. I was very fortunate, and I realised when I was there, they said, "Oh yes, so you work for Richard Cherry. We just wanted to look at what his students look like." I thought, okay, so sending in your CV, you were being selected not necessarily on your skills, but just on, they wanted to good look at you, and you had to be lucky to go on the course.
Right. Right.
So when I got to York, I thought, actually, it's a course, but actually, if I wasn't in that lab, I wouldn't have got on that course. And that seemed not unfair. That's that model, because we set up courses for fees. If you pay a fee, you get to come on it. We're not discriminatory in any way at that point, because the people are paying with their own money and not charities' money, where you do have to be selective. So it was a different model that complemented what they did, and used a similar hands-on courses. It has to be hands-on, because that's the way I learn.
Right.
Put me in front of an hour-long lecture, and I'll lose interest halfway through, at the very latest.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're hands-on, I'm fully engaged with it, because you can play with things. You don't just have to take what the person's saying at face value. You can try it out. So the courses encourage delegates to counter what they're being told if they want to, change things, change parameters, see what actually happens. Well, we told you this will happen. Don't just do it. Try and do the opposite and see what happens, and properly learn.
Right.
So we started those in 2003, and then the Royal Microscopical Society approached us to run their, is it the flow course or the light microscopy course first? One of the two. I can't remember which.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got York is wonderful. It really is a utopian place to do biology. And we are very, very, very lucky. And the infrastructure we have around us was very lucky. So for setting up these courses, we had lovely seating areas, lovely lunch areas, good space to put the instruments that are not in the lab necessarily, but actually remote. So the day job goes on in the labs, and we can run the courses for the RMS, which I will point out, as I have to, is not just for RMS members, but it is for anyone to attend. But if you're not a member, you should definitely become a member.
Yeah, we'll put a link on the thing.
Obviously, complete bias, but it does loads of good outreach. I won't. No, I shouldn't. Yeah,
no, it's good.
We can talk about that later.
And the classroom are, so it's for everybody, but like mostly I suppose the main group of users are going to be the students from York.
No.
Reach out elsewhere as well.
Just the opposite. So we have internal courses, which are cut down, edited versions, nowhere near as big, not as cosseted. The 4-day courses are vast majority, as in, out of all the years, 99% are external. Probably 50% UK, 50% rest of world. So from America, from North America, South America, Africa, Australasia, Europe, no one from Antarctica yet. But so we hit some people come from here, there, and everywhere, and from all skill levels, from PhDs to technical staff to postdocs to academics themselves, through to other core facility staff.
Yeah, so from Mexico to learn microscopy then.
Yeah, or cytometry.
Or cytometry, of course.
Yeah. So it really is. Day one brings come on. I landed a flow role and a microscopy role, but I was never taught the basics.
Mm-hmm.
You parachuted in here at mid-level, not at the bottom level.
Yeah.
And you have to make all this presumed knowledge. But actually, to scratch under, go, why is it like that? Why are we doing it like that? So really, day one brings everyone here back up to where they are today in most cases, and then takes them beyond. And they'll know some of it. Some of it's just reassuring. I challenge anyone not to learn something.
Oh, yeah.
There's always something. And every course is slightly different because it's hands-on in small groups and delegates pressing buttons themselves and asking different questions. It's always quite a dynamic and quite a good fun week, actually. It's enjoyable.
Yeah. How do you balance whenever you prepare one of these class of these course? How do you balance uh, getting people at step one and covering your basis, and in the next few days you have to get them to like what are now very complex levels of uh,
Layered learning.
right?
I don't know, by accident or by design. So we've had people come back and repeat the course.
Oh,
And I said, oh, do we have to do day one again? I said, well, no, you've got to pay a fee, but you don't have to turn up for day one. It's your money. You do what you want. They always do turn up for day one because they think they're here in town. And every one of them who's done it twice goes, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much more there was to learn. So I guess they learn enough and what they're layered, but actually, if you've got a layer, there's an added layer on top that they don't realize they're missing.
right.
And it's not essential, but that's where you become your experts. You got the novices to intermediate, then your intermediates go to advanced, your advanced go to experts. There's always that sort of layered learning that no one feels like they're missing out
Right.
or not learning. It's there, but sometimes it doesn't sink in and they just drop it because it moves at a speed that you don't get overly concerned by it.
Yeah.
And you're just on to the next learning objective.
I'm uh I'm gonna throw an idea at you and let me know. But we've basically kind of started talking about when we talk about like very complex analysis, high level of number of markers, we completely stop talking about compensation and we just assume you're going to do unmixing, you're going to do spectral flow, you're going to use the unmixing algorithm. And so there's a whole lot of things we don't need to talk about anymore. And so that's our way of like moving faster throughout our curriculum. So I don't know if we're leaving out stuff or are we now just
But for the moment, spectral flow is still for the wealthy. It's for the
yeah,
well-established labs. Uh, we're doing some industrial work at the moment, so we don't just have internal users, we have external users. We're doing some for an industrial client at the moment, and we're designing an assay for them that may end up being flow-based.
right,
At that point, they'll just need a two-color cytometer. They won't need a spectral
right,
cytometer. So I maybe as detectors come cheap, they'll just come default a spectral. But until that day comes, there'll still be that budget. So I think that there's that spectrum all the way through. So I think spectral is great for those top-end immunologists, but for many others, it's not essential. Mm-hmm. And there's at the moment there's a market for both. And I think we've got another 10-year progression before we see more and more spectral becoming the dominant part of it.
Right. I should have mentioned, like, whenever we organize our classes, it would be like, say, the advanced flow topics, and there you kind of assume complex experiments.
I'd never assume everyone understands compensation.
Yeah.
The one bare bug. And high dimensional analysis, we'll see where machine learning and AI kick out. We've obviously got the new flow companies now that have got a lot of AI-based mechanics in the background, but they're not telling us what features they're using. Well, they don't know what features they're using to identify the subpopulations.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I can cope with that it still identifies this cell from that cell without any staining, just on the AI. But isn't it a shame they can't tell me what the phenotypic differences are? Because that would be super useful.
Right.
Because then you can start to understand the phenotype of the cell better, which, in fairness, I guess I come from a slightly biased perspective that a lot of our latest imaging work was looking at cell phenotyping using label-free microscopy side. And that label-free cytometry side will follow. There's a publication sitting on my desktop. I won't go to it now and tab you out. Looking at tychography using a flow cytometer. And we was doing a CYTO tutorial on label-free imaging. And the question was about label-free cytometry. And it's going to be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can pick out the unique metrics. It's not just blind machine learned and AI. We will know what the phenotypic, whether it's the mass, shape, size, granularity. What are the different metrics that make that cell unique? Because then as you drug change it, or if someone becomes diseased, you can see those phenotypic changes of that cell type. So at the moment, I think a lot of these cytometers are, you have to teach, you have to train. And if something changes in the background, can we be confident with it?
Right.
You have to ask a specific question to know that the answer is going to come out the back end of it. A bit like spectral, I guess you have to tell it what colors you've got in there. What it's not doing at the moment is telling you what colors you put in there, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes.
I think that's when it gets clever, when it tells you what colors are actually in there and how much of each color without you having to tell it.
It's a nice, just a parenthesis, because that's another Purdue topic right now on the Purdue list. Somebody asking about the flow cytometry imaging systems, and we had a podcast on this, couple of actually. Daniel Vosel was part of both of them, and he's very gung-ho about the technologies. Really, he thinks it's going to be very, very useful. I'm still agnostic about it. I think there's a difference between what Danielle is talking about, which is typically the spinning confocal discs, and or what otherwise are just like flow cytometers with a little camera on them. And
so we have an S8 again, so I guess we were on the lucky side
right.
BD. And the imaging side has been more useful than I probably thought it would be.
Yes.
You know, the S8 was it had the banker that it could do spectral.
Right.
So I now have a spectral system, so I was quite happy. And what a bonus, it's got imaging and the microscopist as well. That kind of puts everything into one basket. So we were very early with the spectral and mixing for microscopy. We were using that back in 2002. So to bring that together with flow and the imaging and the cytometric analysis, put everything in the one basket, which is nice. But I thought the resolution, come on, how useful it's going to be. Okay, it's quite good. I'm impressed that even at a resolution, I think I worked out numerical aperture equivalent to about 0.27. But it seems better. Some of the data, yes. So some of the applications I hadn't really thought of using it for, suddenly you're thinking, I can now start using it for some of the yeast work. So we've got quite a few budding scientists. Get yeast budding scientists.
Yes. Very good, very good.
They're all fun guys. And so they're quite good with it. I never thought the bacterial users would find it useful. And actually, even for the bacterial users, for some applications, it's proving useful for. So I obviously the microbiologists really bug us, but so that's my last one for you.
So is it the same general conclusion we had in the podcast? Is like whenever you have some model for which you don't have the antibodies, then you're gonna rely on the images. Otherwise,
no, I think.
But like, do you do a lot of like?
Sometimes it's just really reassuring. Sometimes the user will come in and go, "Oh, you know, here's my sample," and they're looking at it, and you look at the image and go, "Your cells are really bad.
Right.
They're really not in good health at all." You
right.
can see it. But on a cytometry, you'd just be looking at the fluorescence numbers.
Yeah.
And you'd sort them.
Yeah.
And then you go off and think, "My God, that's really bad. What have you done wrong on that day?" Well, you can see things are not looking quite right. It's an extra value information. It's an extra phenotypic bit of information for your data. And even if you don't publish using it, it's actually quite useful to see. So there's obviously the applications of internalization, or where your DNA, if it's condensating or not. So you've got applications it's relevant for. Is your bacteria, the surface, is it actually endocytosing it? You can see all that. But there's other valuable information that you don't even think that you're probably not going to publish, because you're going to see something and think, "Oh, some things aren't right today," and bin it. Otherwise, you'd have carried on. So it saves time, it saves cost, and potentially it saves dodgy results.
True enough. Would a CCD camera be enough on your sorter, or do you really need the fluorescent markers on the images?
I still need fluorescence.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you've got your think sites and I know you've got the other systems out there that can do label free. Again, you need the training models. If you're now
Mhm.
looking at bacteria being uptaken, there's things that no, you still need fluorescence.
Right.
Look, I'm a label free. We do tychography, we do quantitative phase imaging. We were there at the inception of tychography for live cell imaging. We brought live cell imaging to tychography. That's our claim to fame. So of course we love label free, but I still want to see where my protein is. I still
Yeah.
want to see what proteins are combining, which ones are coming together, which ones are co-localizing, which ones are fretting, how dynamic they are. We still need fluorescent labels.
Hmm.
Until we can image a specific protein without tagging, we need tags. Whether it
Right.
be fluorescence or something else, or who knows where the future holds. But at the moment, that's fluorescence.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've been skeptic about the S8 forever. Every time I have a podcast where I bring the topic up, I think we're gonna sink it, and no, no, it seems to be legit.
No, we like it. I've just got a really bad tickle on it.
Oh yeah, no.
Sorry.
Um, moving back to training, and I've participated in some of the RMS online events, specifically the core manager meeting. And I can't remember if it's something that's done yearly or if it's every other year or um but it's very, very nice, really well organized. The topics are actually uh quite appropriate, I would say. uh
Yeah, so they we started those back again for light microscopy first in 2007-ish.
mhm,
And the idea of those meetings is to talk business,
right,
not just to talk science, but the business end, because running a facility is a business.
right,
And it's to embrace that. And a lot of people, again, we find ourselves using flow cytometers in the mid-level, not the basics. Lots of people are parachuted into running core facilities or operating in a core facility without the fundamentals to start with. We've all learnt on the job. So it's to share those tips and tricks and see how things are evolving. So we have in-person. So now we've moved it into flow cytometry. We have in-person ones once a year. But then we got over COVID, we took them online with establishing safe working practices and then running it for the core facilities meeting. And now we've got a virtual meeting as well as it. So UK has its in-person once a year, but we've now got a virtual one every year as well. Can be its second year coming up with
right,
loads of European partners. So it's not just Derek and myself at that point, but we've invited people to represent other countries, because otherwise it's too UK centric. And the idea is we help get it established and then we back off and let it move forward as its own entity. You've got to be careful not to have too much involvement. You do need to give people their independence and let things move in their direction. But it's very hard letting go of your babies.
yeah, yeah. But it's and I guess I'm gonna tie that back to my question about how to get information again, where you're trying to reach out to people who are just parachuted in as in their position as core director, but that you're also talking to people who have quite a bit of experience. And so how do you design topics that are going to be relevant to everybody and not just be a complete. So sometimes you go to these meetings and you go, oh, I've seen that person give that same talk for quite a bit of time. So how do you avoid these type of traps?
Yeah, so a brainstorm with whoever the local organisers are
Right.
that year, and then to make sure we don't repeat any topics within a 3-year cycle.
Oh,
But
really?
then we
Yes.
do repeat subjects 3, 4 years later because there's going to be new people coming into the community. So although it gets a bit repetitive for some of us, there's lots of other people. And again, that multi-layer, the first time they hear it, they'll have heard some bits. Second time they hear it, they'll learn more. By the third time, hopefully they'll be doing the talking.
Yeah.
So again, it gives that layered, and then by which point you'll have matured and you'll be interested in other bits. And then half the time you'll be working in the background because you're only there for 20% of what's going to be relevant. And the other 80% you may be working in the background as some of the more experienced people there will not be listening to everything we're delivering.
Yeah.
Not us, where we just chair and help put together, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, it's kind of a challenge because I've been elected the president of GLIFCA meeting in 2025, trying to land it in Chicago, and now we're trying to. So GLIFCA has been there for, I wouldn't say 30 years roughly, and it's the same meeting, yearly meeting that has been moving along from city to city, and over time you kind of see the audience coming to the meeting kind of change, and it's you especially, I don't know, you need this kind of continuity, and you need some kind of progress, but you need some kind of direction as well, in a way that grows the meeting, and not just like constantly.
But you move it around regions, and moving it around regions helps grow it.
Right.
It gets rid of those who are not really desperate for it because they won't travel for it. So you can always have a local community that benefit once, but then won't travel with it. But you'll get a few more that will then go with the meeting.
Right.
And
but there's different things as well. It used to be the board of directors used to be composed of many more faculty members and people working in clinical roles. And now that they kind of moved away, and they've been replaced by apparently just a bunch of core facility people. And now it's really hard for us to like get back to the same clinical issues, or it feels like it to me at least. Maybe it's different from the other board members. I don't want to talk for them, but like it feels like we're kind of driving some people out, and I don't know. It's a
No, it's a good point. You know, we see, if you think about Isaac and CYTO, there's fewer and fewer clinical people because they now have another home
right
to go to. So they're no longer part of that. Because the community's got bigger and bigger and bigger, such that now it's kind of become a bit fractured. And there's two distinct camps because actually these, you know, we're interested in the tech and pushing it to its nth degree and the business model. Clinicians, they're interested in the panels,
right,
and the analysis,
right.
And it is a very different mindset, different drivers that they come with. And don't put me at a conference with a load of clinicians because I've got no interest in all their panels.
Right.
You know, yeah, let's hear about another Fox P3 analysis. No.
Yeah.
Because that's not what I need to know. And likewise, they don't want to hear about the cost of our service contracts, or they don't want to hear about how we work out the charge per hour on an instrument because that doesn't affect them. So I think maybe we have, as things have matured and core facilities have become a thing, and clinicals panels have got more complex, maybe become more specialized and fragmented off. Whereas before it's just 2-3 colors, doesn't matter what the application is, it's all relevant to everyone. Become less like that, maybe.
It's important to keep track of that because your sponsorship will change based on who goes to your meeting, and so we've started losing some industry supporters who kind of told us, well, we don't present anything that's clinical anymore, or they don't have enough people going to their booth asking about their product, so they're going to go somewhere else.
Well, I guess that depends on the event that you're doing, what its target audience is. If you look at the courses, the 4-day hands-on course doesn't discriminate because it's the fundamentals and it's relevant to clinical or not. The RMS course has a whole clinical stream to itself against the research side. So there is both markets to get there together at the start, but then we really let the clinical teams geek out on their panel analysis.
Right.
And we let the techies geek out on their other applications that you can do, like the small bacteria work and extracellular vesicles. So we let them geek out on their stream. where the commonality is not so clear at that point.
Yeah.
So I think that there are ways to keep both there, but it limits what you can do unless you have parallels.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to have to make everything very generic for that audience and not go into a super geeky
Right.
direction.
Which limits the interest probably on, so
yeah,
with everybody.
You can't please everyone all the time.
Yeah.
We
try.
Have to choose which market to go or run alternates.
Yeah.
Yeah, GiveGo, you could always do a clinical and a core, and then bring in more clinical people to put their content, dictate what their content should be, what's their hot topics, and pass it over.
Right.
That lives on, but now you've got two entities with the same name.
But I think you're right. The other thing is that GLIFCA, the RMS, the CYTO meeting, we all compete with each other for, I mean, GLIFCA, not so much with the RMS, obviously, but we're trying to attract our users, and we all have limitations of how much money we can spend on. So it might just be what needs to happen. Like clinical people will need to find a new home, or
yeah, and the RMS tries not to. We try and find niches or areas that are not
right
directly competing. I'm not big in competing.
Well, yeah, no, competing in just in terms of you want people to come and they have limited amount of funds. So
you're fighting for the same people, but we're offering different contents, and we think, well, if our content is more relevant to them, then that's good. Otherwise, we try and support others. As a charity from the Royal Microscopical Society, you have to. Its remit is to support flow cytometry, to support microscopy, to support imagers. It's quite broad now.
Right.
Microscopy in the Royal Microscopical, in fact, the Royal Animal, it's just a society for image microscopy flow related users and businesses.
Yeah.
And it's there to support that, and therefore helping other communities with their events is very much part of their remit. Yeah. So it's not just there to do its own content, but obviously it has to raise income.
Right.
Charity doesn't have limitless resources. It has to generate money to give money.
Yeah, to pay your bills and stuff. Yeah.
But at least it is a charity, and so it does put back with quite a lot of outreach, and like those virtual meetings.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they run obviously with, well, you paid nothing to go on it. Those facility meetings, free to attend, paid to the sponsors and the charity. So it gives back as well. Hence, be a member, because your money goes back into the community.
I do feel like online meetings, podcasting, that's going to take more and more space and training in general. It's like it's free, it's there. Why not?
How do you find you get virtual conferences, and some people really don't like virtual meetings. They much prefer to be in person. What's your preference?
I don't like virtual conferences. I'll say that, because it's basically taking the model of a in-person meeting and sticking it camera, and you just feel like you're 25,000 feet away from like where the stuff is. If you're gonna do stuff online, make it fun, make it interesting, and don't bother to pretend that you're.
What about virtual meetings? So you got your GLIFCA meetings.
Yeah, I didn't like those either. I think we did those because we didn't have a choice. But
no, but I mean when you're meeting as a working group to talk about the in-person meeting.
Oh no, yes, no, those are critical, because otherwise, like all these people live in quite far away, and so you'll need that.
And do you find that as rich an interaction as in person?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think it's not. I personally think, if I was to see you tomorrow, it's like I've just seen you today.
Right.
For me, it's still quite interactive, quite personal. Others find, obviously don't engage at the same level with the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I just watched too much TV as a kid.
Right. But I think as far as online content goes, you do lose some you know,
For conferences,
this communication and so on. But I don't watch TV anymore. I watch everything on YouTube, and there's so many creative ways of making content, and I feel like we're just scratching at this point. We're just making our PowerPoints and presenting them with voiceover and stuff like that. But we could make all of this stuff way more interesting, way more.
well, let's see where AI helps in the future. But
Oh yeah,
I think for
AI.
a conference has to be in person.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, but ideally in person. The forums still prefer it in person because you get lots of coffee time chatter,
Mm-hmm.
lots of lunchtime, lots of evening, after drink or two, proper chat that you wouldn't have online. But I do think the online ones are still very dynamic for those facility meetings.
Yeah.
And enable people to come that wouldn't otherwise be able to come. So it's inclusive in a different way. There's again, place for both.
Yeah.
You need to come to an in-person one in the UK for the flow.
Oh yeah. No, it's we'll have to. ChUG, we have a it's kind of a bug that's now a feature. Whenever we talk about CYTO meeting, we don't go. So we have nothing to say about it. Would you care to do a quick review of the last CYTO meeting in Edinburgh? How did that go?
Do you know what? I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I don't go to CYTO every year. CYTO is expensive. I don't mean the conference fees. I mean just flying out, hotels. And oh my goodness, hotels in Edinburgh are expensive. We ended up finding a Verbo, like an Airbnb equivalent type apartment for two of us, separate beds and en suites, which proved really useful and good. But it was so expensive otherwise. It's very hard to just, what do you want to do? Science and spend your money on science, or be at the conference? But no, it was really good. It was really nice seeing so many people again, because I didn't go to last year's CYTO, so it's good just face with people. The company exhibition.
Oh, wait a minute! You were at CYTO last year.
Oh, I was in Montreal last year.
There.
Montreal was awesome as well. Oh, Claire Brown took me to a really nice Chinese as well. Oh yeah, that was very cool. But no, it was really good again this year. It was. Actually, I did meet other people, and some people you don't get to talk to everyone.
Right.
And actually, I felt as though I got to talk to more people this time. But then I hardly went to a conference session.
Oh yeah, right.
I
skipped the whole lot of.
I don't go for the conference.
Right.
The exhibition, the companies, seeing the new technology, getting some time to talk to them about how the new technology works, be able to really quiz them, to really get to the nuts and bolts of it.
Yep.
That's where it's really cool. We did a tutorial, we did a workshop. Really enjoyed those as well. So they were really good feedback, good audience, good interaction. The workshop that I went to, they put it together really well, very interactive. So you felt as though it was productive, felt as though it challenged you, you learned something, it made you think. I think that's what's nice about going to the meetings. It gives you time to think. Edinburgh was a lovely venue. We got lucky with the weather, mostly. And it was just some good memories from it. It was positive. It was a positive experience.
Good. You mentioned meeting people, and I don't think I navigate meetings all that well myself. Like in Montreal, I ended up in this company party thing there. They had us line up to sign an NDA before we could get in, and then you just like wasted 45 minutes of your life in this thing. What are do's and don'ts in your mind of how when you go to a meeting, like don't go to a line where you sign NDAs, obviously. Okay, so we get that one, but like
well actually, are we legally allowed to?
I think it's just for fun. They just made that to look.
It is, and at York, if I'm being a York employee, I cannot sign it. Right. So I have to put my home address
right
on it. So I'm now acting as an individual, not as a work employee.
Right.
I don't think they've thought that through. How would they like it if we asked one of their company representatives to sign an NDA themselves?
Right.
Has
I
anyone ever thrown that back on them? I think was it the BD party?
Yeah, I was not gonna name
It
that.
was a super cool venue though. I will say it was
We
well
love
worth
them.
it.
And the S8. Mwah. No,
The
I think
evening was
there
cool.
were 200 people, 200 people in that and signed that NDA, so there was no way that would be enforced in any way. Like it's just
Yeah, it is. I don't know, showmanship to make it
right.
maybe feel more special, maybe. But let's just cut the rubbish. Just make it invited guests or something. Coulters this year, we did the live podcast for Flow Stars as we did the year before. And again, the venue was really good. Turnout was really good for Coulter as well. So that was excellent.
Yep.
So yeah, Martin and his team put on a good, slightly biased, good show. But they did then have Kaylee dancers come in, and they did have so again, you can see the chaos. It's almost like a scientific lesson. You can look at when things are nicely harmonized, like your flow stream, to the chaos that went out.
Nice.
And the Flow Stars obviously they had their nano launch, so we talked a bit about the nano. We got Matt Goff up to talk a bit about the spectral cytoplex that's coming. So it was good. Again, the parties we went to, BD did an evening. That was they had different customers talk. Best scientific content there that week because it was just 5 minute snapshots.
Right.
It's all I need. 5 minutes. They've told me everything I need to know. And if I want to know more, I could go up and talk to them. They gave me all the ideas I wanted and new ideas. It's like brilliant. So yeah, this year again, I think the corporate events, certainly the BDSA evening and the Coulter evening, were both useful.
Yeah.
So not just nice to go to. They both served a good scientific purpose.
Nice.
God, that sounds boring, doesn't it? I've got to go to a party to learn something. But it is nice. It's not just about the networking. You know, you feel as though you grew the network through those meetings.
Right. Yeah. No, you get to talk to people, get exchange ideas, and a whole bunch of podcast ideas came at my ABRF stay. So
So you go next year, Denver.
Denver, probably. Yeah. Yeah. I'm it yeah. Yeah, it's choosing your meetings is kind of a difficult. There's quite a bit going on.
So the last time we bumped into each other was at Montreal. Was it the core facilities evening or the president's?
Yes,
Facilities, wasn't it? I think.
Which is not as fun as it used to be. Or it used to be like a dinner with a bunch of people presenting something or another, and now it's just a bunch of people.
Dinners with discussions,
right?
And you had discussion topics on the table. Actually, I like that.
Yeah,
because then you got to talk to other people, and there was a talking point that was relevant.
Right. And now it's a party, and I'm not good at those.
And it wasn't. It's not much of a party either this year. It was a hard gig because of the acoustics. They did their utmost best, but in the limitations of where they were, the timing of it, it was they had a really difficult task. I can't criticize the team who put it on because they live within the constraints of what they had to do.
Yeah,
I'd rather pay something and actually make it useful.
Yeah.
But sad again.
I mean, look, that's what ChUG is here for. We're just consumers of flow cytometry stuff, whether it's machines, reagents, meetings, associations. And I think it's a good space to discuss the value of the different things. So
yeah,
this is a good.
And all we're drinking is orange squash or coffees. Whereas, I guess, take me back 10 years ago, those parties would have been much better because I'd have been happy to drink all the alcohol they had available. Whereas,
right, you can't do that anymore. So it's
just not worried about it.
Yeah. All right, Peter, did we cover everything we wanted to talk about? Any questions lingering on your end? I'm
That's
happy.
a question for you to answer.
I'm happy. This was great. I learned a lot.
No, it's super cool. We will get you on the Flow Stars. Should I be lucky enough to get another season commissioned?
See, that's where I wanted to say Flow Stars is, you have like Johnny Moore and we talked about
Gary Nolan,
Gary
Paul
Nolan and all
Robinson.
these people, and then you get David. Who's this guy?
Come
People,
on, everyone knows who you are.
all my colleagues around the world in Utah are gonna roll their eyes and dangerously because like if wind catches
Come on,
get
look,
stuck that
David,
way.
I knew who you were.
Hmm?
I knew who you were.
Well, sure.
Oh,
I'm a nice
yes.
guy, but like I'm not a star. Just like,
Don't know yourself.
all right, I'll go. Fine.
I just have to get another season commission. Come on, Coulter.
Oh, it's not commissioning? How does that work? You have to
So
like
again,
get
because
funding and
BioScience
then
put it together, so they have to wait to see where the budgets are up to.
got it. Are we
Maybe
talking
one
about a
day.
whole lot of money or
Otherwise, I'm knocking on the door to BD or
oh
Thermo or Sony or Cytotech or we'll
oh
see who wants it. But Coulter, Coulter have been great in trusting getting it off
right.
the ground, and I have a lot of loyalty to them for the podcast side.
Yeah.
We
Sure,
have a lot
sure.
of Coulter equipment, but we have BD equipment also. So we're not that way, but yeah,
No.
they've been very trusting, very helpful. So,
Ah,
but
podcasting doesn't cost like ChUG is sponsored by the cat facility website, which we managed to monetize through the Google Ads
okay,
thing. And that gives us $100 a year or something. And that
cool.
pays for all we need for the podcast. So, yes.
Yeah, but BioScience, they've got that distribution list. They put it
Yeah,
together.
that's a made
Help
difference.
do the
Like
editing.
my views are I'm nowhere near a million.
But this is a quarter of a million. We're not a million yet. Quarter of a million. But this
Oh,
is just
quarter
on
mil.
YouTube. Yeah,
What's
this is
that?
just on YouTube. This is just on YouTube, though, isn't it?
On the audio as well. And the audio
Yeah.
is the one that costs money actually, $12 to host your recording.
But to then put the sound recording onto Spotify and onto YouTube audio and onto iTunes and onto Google and onto Geezer and onto it's a lot of effort to get all that sorted. And that's what bite
No,
size
actually, my you have the host of your audio podcast will do that for you.
yeah,
All
and
of that
bite
is
size bio
automated.
look after all, and they do the promotional side,
Right,
which
right.
helps.
No, yeah, no. There's total value in I yeah. My podcast is a cry
Super.
in a desert. Like it is nobody's listening. That's probably fine. But yeah,
What are good viewing figures for you then?
a good figure.
Yeah.
Typically, we get the hundreds. Like the service contract podcast reached I want to say 400 or 500 views
Ooh,
on
that's good
YouTube.
going.
That's getting for
Yeah.
my level of
No, that's excellent.
engagement. That's probably good.
Oh. Right, everyone, if you watched or listened to this, make sure you forward it on to your mates. Let's see if we can beat
Yeah.
400.
5 people.
Did I say I'm
These people,
competitive?
5 more people.
Yeah.
A couple of rounds, we'll run out of people on Earth. Then we'll need to go to outer space. So.
Oh, yes. That's what I should get an astronaut next.
Oh, what's the Canadian one had brought a flow stometer in space. I'm forgetting all the names, especially astronauts now.
There you go. I should get one of the scientific astronauts.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
All right,
British
Peter.
Tim Peake, so we can get Tim. That'd be. I think I'd be rather fortunate if I was to be able to pull that off.
I don't know. It feels like you just ask, and it's probably not that far.
If they're in the field related, yes. If they're not, because there's no fee involved. I don't know. Some people won't do things
If
without
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about Tim Peake at all, but but they've got to make a career.
Right.
I know there's some scientists that would probably only do it for a fee, I believe.
Oh,
They'll only do some conferences for a fee.
right.
Can you believe that? Scientific conferences, scientists, and want a fee to go.
Yeah.
Expenses, yes, but a fee. God, you've got to be good to be able to demand that.
It has to be like so important, so informative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, I'm gonna thank you so
yes,
much.
David,
This has
thank
been
you.
so great.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure to catch up and speak to you soon. And see you in Denver, if not at the facility meetings in January.
Absolutely.
Or the virtual one in December.
Virtual, definitely the virtual one.
Not online yet. Will be coming later.
You have a date? Idea? Roughly?
Yeah.
First, like for the
First,
beginning of
second
December,
week.
I think.
Yeah, first early part of December. First
Yeah,
half of December. I can guarantee that. I can't remember what the dates are.
All right. I'll put that on my website.
If it's not next week, I don't remember. Right, David.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye.